Let's talk to Baroness Ros Altmann, crossbench peer, former pensions minister as well, because there's a benefits backlash going on. One of the things that we're reading about this morning in The Sun is that it may well be that Liz Kendall is going to completely revamp the way that they reassess PIP payments, and nobody's really quite sure how it's all going to go, because clearly the skids are under this Labour government and they're trying to recapture whatever popularity they might have had back in July of last year. Baroness Ros, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike.
Good to talk to you. They're obviously in full kind of back-peddling mode at the moment, the government, so I guess if you were lobbying to have these disability benefits looked at in another way, this would be a good time to do it.
Absolutely. I think the government is on the ropes a little bit because it has taken away benefits from people who were never expecting a Labour government to do something like this.
Right.
Now, it started with the winter fuel payment, and that is the biggie, because on the doorsteps at the local elections, that was the thing that came up time and time again.
Yeah.
And now, with cutting potentially disability benefits, I think that the government itself is in a bind, because its MPs supported it during the winter fuel payment fiasco,
Yeah.
I would call it. I think what was done was just so crass and so wrong, and the way it was done was even worse, taking winter fuel payments from the very poorest pensioners, because if you're on pension credit, you're not necessarily the poorest pensioner.
Yeah.
But on disability benefits, I think more Labour MPs are now ready to rebel, whereas there was solid support, even though people were holding their nose and thinking this is awful, but they were still supporting the government. With the next cuts coming now, there seems to be more of a mood to rebel, but the government has a massive majority. It's hard to imagine that they would actually lose a vote in Parliament if it comes to that. But I think, as you say, there may be a bit of backpedaling and a bit of, well, maybe we'll soften things here and there.
Right.
But the government has to save some money somewhere.
They do, but the trouble is every place they say they're going to save money, it gets sort of dwarfed by somewhere else where they say they're going to spend it. You know, because even the winter fuel allowance saving didn't really save them very much. Similarly, neither did the VAT on private schools, didn't really provide them with an awful lot of money. You know, so similarly this, I think, because it's been so badly organised and so badly described, it's not that clear how much money even this, you know, curbing of the disability scheme is going to work.
Absolutely. And that's, I think, the calculation that will need to be made. Is it worth the political pain to save a tiny bit of money, or should the government just say, OK, we've listened to our MPs and backbenchers and, of course, particularly voters on the doorstep, and we are going to try and find another way to save some money. And they have to do some cutting somewhere.
Right.
But I think the way that they've been looking at doing it is politically difficult for them to sustain.
Well, that's right. And surely there are other places where they could look. I mean, they've talked about cutting back on civil service, the size of the civil service. They talked about making people redundant. But again, it was slightly smoke and mirrors job, because they were actually talking about, you know, asking for voluntary redundancies from people and kind of basically just not replenishing some jobs that were left vacant, which is not the same as cutting, is it?
Well, it in the end will mean a cut in the numbers, but as you say, Mike, it doesn't save a lot of money in the short run.
No.
These things take time, and it's a kind of very slow cut, whereas what's happened to the finances of the nation is that there's been a massive change in the estimates of what the country can afford. And of course, we've also had, which I still think is a mistake, a very much higher interest rate environment than we should have or would have expected. And the Bank of England, in my view, needs to get on and cut rates much faster than it has, because real interest rates, you know, interest rates above inflation, have been kept very high just in case inflation goes up, while growth itself and fiscal policy have meant that we are actually going to head for a much weaker economy. So, you know, government borrowing costs have spiraled. And to...
But that's because they keep borrowing more money.
they keep borrowing more money, but the cost of borrowing has been going up as
Yes.
well.
Yes, no, I
And
know, because they're borrowing money to pay off some of the interest on the other money that they've borrowed.
exactly,
It's bonkers.
exactly. And unless we get more growth, and of course, the tax policies that we've seen in terms of employer national insurance are the opposite of growth producing, then we are still going to have a massive fiscal hole that needs filling.
Yeah.
Pension funds could help in terms of filling some of the growth gap, in my view, and we could perhaps help people see that investing more pension money in the UK itself, as all other countries do, we have a very low exposure to the UK, could help to boost Britain and also boost our pensions and long term make it a better country for us all to retire into. The government has to find money somewhere.
Yeah.
And there are big sums in certain areas, but the benefit cuts are not big sums, they're small sums.
Have you seen this morning that Lloyds Bank has apparently snubbed that plea from Rachel Reeves to push money into the UK? Scottish widows apparently have said that they're not going to sign up to the pact, which would see Britain's largest retirement funds invest 50 billion in infrastructure, property and private equity by the end of the decade. So, I mean, the trouble is, the sense you get from Rachel Reeves and the general kind of, stewarding of the economy is that they don't really know what they're doing. So, I mean, I wouldn't invest in anything that had any Rachel Reeves mark on it. Thank you very much indeed.
Well, I believe in Britain. I actually think our markets are quite bombed out. And I don't think we have to have just unlisted or private equity. That gives a huge amount of money to the city rather than directly to industry.
Yeah.
We could be buying more of our quoted stock.
Yeah, but I mean, again, if things are worth doing, I'll do them. For example, if my pension advisor says put some money into this because it's a good idea, because you'll make money, then I'll do it. But I'm not going to do it just because it's supposed to be good for Britain, because I've already given Britain plenty of money, thanks very much indeed, and they've just squandered it, So, same with electric cars, if you make me an electric car that's cheaper than the petrol car that I've got, and it's as good as it, and it works as well, and it's cheaper, I'll buy it. But, not if it's more expensive.
No, well,
basic
actually,
economics, right?
British companies are a lot cheaper than other companies abroad. The trouble is we need confidence in growth. And that's what's missing.
Yeah, but the trouble is everything here is more expensive than it is everywhere else. I mean, I hear tales of woe from everyone. People who go away on holiday. You go to Spain, you can buy a bottle of wine for £1. You can buy a packet of cigarettes for £4. You can go out for dinner for sort of, €25. Here, you're spending hundreds of pounds doing the same thing.
Well, I think inflation everywhere has been an issue. And yes, you can go places where you pay a lot more. There are also places which, you can go to in Spain and other countries, which you pay a fortune as well.
I'm talking just generally, just an ordinary family of four, living in Britain right now are paying a lot more for everything, including petrol, including, clothing, including food, than you are in places like Spain and France. You are.
That is another problem. The cost of energy here is a huge issue.
Yeah.
We have got such a mismatch between the costs of our industry and producing here and that which exists in other countries because we have made our energy so much more expensive. We've dropped the subsidies, but of course, if we want to have energy security here, we've got to make sure that we have domestic energy supplies as well, because if we're relying on Russia and we're relying on
but we've got domestic energy supplies, but they've all been closed off thanks to Ed Miliband.
I think they'll need to revisit that too. I really do.
I hope so. I'm glad to see how optimistic you are, Baroness Ros. It's very refreshing to see. So well done to you. Thank you very much indeed. Baroness Ros Altmann, crossbench peer, former pensions minister, saying she believes in Britain. We should back Britain more. I agree.